Hi, good evening. My name is David, and today I am running a session of Voidheart Symphony, our first session of Voidheart Symphony. It will be a kind of session zero type affair. Voidheart Symphonies are powered by the Apocalypse game by Mina McJander of UFO Press. It is currently in sort of play testing. We are playing with the version 0.6 rule set. The game is, however, available on Mina's itch, on the UFO Press itch. If you do want to check it out, you can get it right now. And then yeah, that's the game we'll be playing. I'll be giving a bit more of an in-depth discussion about it in a moment. The other thing just to mention before we begin is that we will be we are playing as part of the Gauntlet, which is an online role-playing group. We meet up. We have a gaming calendar that we sort of sign up to games like this to play online. Get together, play them, the usual. We, as well as that, we have a series of podcasts that are well worth a listen, as well as a monthly zine called Codex, which has all sorts of gaming related stuff in it. So if you're interested in finding out about any of the stuff that we do, you can check out gauntlet-rpg.com. I'll put a link to that down below, as well as a link to Mina's itch page. So do check that out. Yeah, I think that's sort of the very broad strokes of what we're doing. So today I will tell you a little bit about the game to start off with, and I'll go through this in our usual CATS process. CATS is an acronym standing for Concept, Aim, Tone, and Subject Matter, and it's basically just a way of introducing and explaining a game and sort of getting us all on sort of the same page about what we'll be doing, how we'll be playing. So I will sort of go through this, and but do feel free to like jump in if you have any questions, if you want to clarify anything, if there's anything else you want to add in, do jump in at any point while I'm going through this. It may end up being a bit of a monologue from me, but input from the rest of you is absolutely encouraged. Cool. So the concept of the game, this is what the game is about in the broader senses. As I mentioned, it's a powered by the Apocalypse game. In specific, it's you may well know Mina from her previous work on, in particular, Legacy, Life Among the Ruins. This has definitely some of the DNA from that, and in particular, one of the World of Legacy games, Rhapsody of Blood. It is not so one of the big concepts in Legacy is that you have two playbooks essentially. You have one that represents your character, one that represents the family that you sort of are a part of, the organization you're a part of. We don't have that sort of split in Voidheart Symphony. You will only be playing like a single character, but it does still kind of have that ethos of being split between two modes of play, sort of thing. So getting a little bit ahead of myself on how the game works, but the idea behind the game is that it's set in a modern city, or vaguely modern city. We'll define specifics on that one once we get onto the city creation in a moment. But so it's set in a city. The characters all play people who have to balance living their lives in the city, in a city that is expressly kind of exploitative and oppressive to the people that live inside it. They have to live their sort of daily lives, but they are also able to move into a sort of shadow of the city, which is referred to as the castle, which is where the powerful in the city are able to kind of bolster their power by drawing on the power of this otherworldly dimension, the castle. And so the characters you play will be able to cross over into that castle engage with the sort of like the psychic projections of those people who are kind of abusing power in the city, disrupt their connection to this castle, and then take back what they've done to then make positive change in the city. And so that's kind of the cycle. So you essentially have a different set of moves and abilities, sort of in whether, depending on whether you're in the sort of the mundane world or whether you're venturing into the castle. So that's kind of the split that we have in this game. So yeah, that's a very brief rundown of it. The sort of one of the key inspirations behind this is Persona 5 in particular. That the idea of sort of being able to like venture into people's unconsciousness and tinker about with stuff and learn more about them and work to sort of break their sort of oppressive power structures. So that's I said one of the key inspirations. I mean, also, so if you sort of think of things a bit like Inception as well, anything where you're sort of like looking at kind of going into somebody's thoughts, and it's and the cast is presented in a very sort of surreal kind of way, that sort of dreamlike sort of way. So yeah, that is broadly what the game is. So the aim of the game, as I mentioned, the main aim of the characters is to try and break some of the abusive power structures that are infusing the city. The way this works in the game, the sort of key sort of core loop of activity in the game is that you will spend time in the mundane world, doing what you need to do to survive, to recover, to find out more information about the vassal, which is this person of power that you'll be trying to take down. You'll then be switching to going into the castle, where you will learn more about the vassal from then inside their sort of like their sort of psychic projection within the castle, fighting against their minions, stealing stuff from inside there, that kind of thing. A vassal, it is. Sorry, Sabine, I just seen with A's, not E's.
With an A or an E?
With an A, yep.
Okay.
Vassal.
Thank you.
No worries. So yeah, the aim will be to kind of go through these loops between the castle and the mundane world. As I said, yeah, the individual characters' motivations is generally going to be to try and make the city a better place. Obviously, you may have sort of conflicting ideas within the group about what will make the city a better place and how you go about things. But broadly speaking, everyone should sort of be on more or less the same page about what you are trying to achieve. And sort of our goal as like players is to sort of explore the struggles and the triumphs of the characters, as well as sort of exploring more about the city itself and the people that live in it. The tone of this game, as I say, it is a sort of modernish city. We may go into slightly near future or recent past potentially, but broadly speaking, it's a modern city. But it is, I mean, without getting too political at the outset, it is very much focused on getting on the sort of the dark abuses of power in the city, which obviously very much mirror many experiences in the world today. One of the things to be aware of is that whilst this game can be, have a sort of a tone of this like dark conspiracy and struggling against oppression, it is ultimately a hopeful game. It is very much a game where you as the characters can win. You can strive towards your goals and have a realistic chance of succeeding at them. Not necessarily easily, not necessarily without sacrifice, but it's absolutely possible. It isn't a kind of a pure grinding misery sort of thing. There is very much a sense of hope there. Sorry about that. In terms of like the kind of visual tone, if as it were, of the game. Obviously, there's a bit of a contrast between like the city as in its sort of mundane sense, and then going into the castle where it is, as I said, this much more like surreal environment. So you've got that kind of switching between the two, that sort of second world thing going on. Which finally brings us around to the subject matter. There's likely to be some violence in the game. It is built with the assumption that there will often be physical threats that you have to overcome within the castle. So it's kind of slightly abstracted violence, but there's potential for violent scenes nonetheless. There's also sort of the potential for sexual and romantic relationships to take place as one of the key things, as we'll learn as we start sort of getting into characters and stuff properly, is that like interpersonal relationships are a big part of this game. We'll undoubtedly see some relationships that could potentially involve sexual or romantic elements. The thing with both violence and the and sort of any sexual content is that we'll be avoiding any like gratuitous sex and violence in here. We'll be keeping it to a sort of like a tasteful level, shall we say. Obviously, as I already mentioned, some of the stuff that we will be dealing with is explicitly modeling sorts of very sort of mundane pressures and oppression that we all to some extent experience as part of living in the modern world. So obviously, if there are any areas of subject matter that you are sensitive and you don't wish to do, like, I mean, to take an example, it's like maybe given the way things are at the minute, I'd like to avoid us focusing too much on like mass unemployment and things like that, because it's or whatever. We'll have a discussion in a moment about any sort of areas of sensitivity like that we'd rather avoid, because obviously there's always an argument to be made for having some kind of catharsis in facing up to those sorts of struggles, but also we don't want to be making anyone relive or experience anything that they're already sick and tired of in real life. So yeah, as I mentioned, this can include things: economic exploitation, bigotry, abuse of personal, financial, and political power, law enforcement overreach, all this sort of thing. The other thing just to mention that in terms of subject matter is, I've already sort of touched on this, but the castle is obviously, it's a surreal place where the normal laws of physics and like do not apply. It is explicitly based on sort of people's like subconsciousness. Well, that's the idea anyway. So there's possible that we'll kind of have some like horror themes, particularly like maybe body horror. Also, obviously, like part of what is going on here is like some idea of like manipulating people's thoughts, or at least plumbing their thoughts, and having a bit of a fiddle around in there. That again, we might want to have some talk about that in terms of our lines and veils. But we will, as I said, we'll be using safety tools for this, as ever. The safety tools I'm intending to use are, we'll be using the X card. The X card is a fairly simple, straightforward tool. If you've not used it before, this is used basically if some subject matter comes up in the game that you're not happy with, and that can be for whatever reason. That might be because it's just something you're not comfortable dealing with. It might be because you just think tonally it's not quite right. You're not happy with like how it jars with other stuff we've done in the game so far, that sort of thing. And if you want to invoke the X card, you can sort of do the holding up your hands in a sort of X sign. You can put something in the chat, the chat at the side, or you can just like say over voice, I'd like to X card that. I will give my usual disclaimer, which is to say I am often tabbed into other screens. I'm just on one monitor here, so it's quite regular. I will be tabbed out into another screen. So anything that's purely visual, I might not catch for a second or two until. So just be aware that probably the best way of getting my attention immediately is to say something in voice, but do feel free to use the chat or whatever if you are more comfortable doing so, and if people do notice that like I haven't stopped something when someone's done like an X in chat, other people are free to shout it out as well. If something's X carded, we'll remove that from the scene. We'll find a way around it. I won't ask you. I might need to ask you exactly what it is that you're X carding, just so we can know to avoid it in future, and address it in the moment. But I won't ask you to justify why it is that you're X carding. If you don't have to explain yourself, but I might need to just ask to clarify what it is that's being X carded. Conversely, if you introduce something that is X carded, don't take that personally. We don't always know what we're going to be comfortable with or not until it comes up. Just accept that we'll be changing that, and don't take it personally. Don't feel like you need to kind of go overboard with apologies or anything like that. We'll just carry on in a comfortable fashion. We'll also be using the script change tool. There is a link to the PDF of this in the shared folder if you want to check that out. This is basically based on sort of like video control commands. So I'll go through sort of the most useful ones from my perspective, certainly, which are pause, which can be used for any reason. If you just want to stop the flow of play for a moment, that might be because you need to go and like answer the door, somebody's calling you, anything like that, and you just need a minute to answer it. It might be because you want to, we're sort of in quite an intense scene, and you just literally just want to take like a 10-second break just to kind of recenter yourself and carry on. It might be, or the specific as well, it might be that you want to just have a quick discussion about something that's happening in the scene, or something that might be happening in the scene, or what you would like to happen in the scene, or anything like that. Just have a quick out of character discussion to clarify, so we all know where we are. Anything like that, just call out pause. We'll take a moment. We'll address whatever needs to be addressed, and then we'll jump back into play again. There's also rewind. Rewind can be used if you just want to go back and change the way something's gone. If you're not happy with the way a scene has started to go, if you're just like not happy with the way that you phrase something that you said in character, and you're like, oh, actually, can we straighten that? I'll say something different instead. Can be used a bit like the X card in that sense. Like, no, we're gonna go back and just change this and go a different way. Then there's also fast forward. Fast forward can be used to quickly to gloss over something. It might be like, okay, yeah, cool. I know that this guy is having surgery done on him now. I don't want an in-depth blow discussion of it. Can we just go to the point when it's being done? Or it might be, for instance, if a scene has just been kind of like going around in circles a bit, and just like, can we just move to a point where we make a decision and go forward, rather than be sort of stuck in this sort of ongoing stuff. So those are, I think, the three most useful commands. There's also frame by frame, which can be used just to indicate they want to take things a little bit more slowly. This might be sort of dealing with some particularly sensitive subject matter that we're like happy to have in, but we just don't want to handle carefully. Or it might be, and this is something that's quite possible, we will be using certainly with some of the more complicated parts of the game. If it's just like, okay, we're going to take this particularly slowly, just so that we all know what we're doing, and we can get we'll stop and explain why this rule does this and that as we go, so that we can kind of get on board with it. So yeah, those are all of the there's also resume, which can be used just to say we're going back into normal play, but we generally know that anyway. And instant replay for just recapping over a scene that we've just done. If there's something you want to just clarify, like, oh, what exactly did you take the gem? I forget, that sort of thing. So that's those are sort of primary safety tools. We'll also be using the open door policy. The open door policy is quite simply, if at any point you need to leave, then you are absolutely free to do so. That might be you just need to leave for a minute or two, like I said, to go and answer the door or something, or it might be that you need to leave for the rest of the evening. For the rest of the session, you just decide I can't carry on with the game now. That's fine. For any reason, you can take that time away. If you can let me know when you'll be back, or if you'll be back, that is handy, but it is by no means required. If you need to leave. Don't worry about anything else. From my perspective, if I am realistically, if like my internet goes down or something like that, and I'm just kind of like not here for like 5 minutes or so, I assume that I probably won't be back. I will try and let you know if something like that does happen, but if don't feel that you have to like stick around if I just disappear suddenly. Touch wood, should be okay, but these things sometimes happen. So yeah, I think those are all of our primary services. We'll also be having we'll also be using lines and veils, which we'll have a quick discussion about now, but I'm going to stop recording for that. Yeah, cool. So we have our lines and veils in place now, and the next steps, and I'll kind of introduce both of these at a similar time, and then we'll go through them in order. So what we're going to do is have a little discussion about what we want our game to look like in general. I'll ask a couple of questions about that in a moment. We will get just a quick idea of any we've obviously done our lines of veils already, but we'll get a little bit of an idea of like stuff that we specifically want to do with the game, and a couple of questions about it setting with our initial setup of the city and stuff as well. The other thing we'll also be doing after that is choosing playbooks. These all sort of form the characters that you play. So the way that creating characters works in this game is that we actually sort of do it like a bit piecemeal over the course of this first session. We'll be adding some elements to the playbook, jumping in for a bit of play, jumping back out of play, adding a couple more elements. Then we'll probably roll on to sort of our following subsequent sessions, and we can add some more details in then. So at the outset, at the very beginning of this, you don't actually need to have much decided about your characters. More they're kind of who they are and what playbook they're in is all we really need to get started. Things like picking some of the sort of more mechanical options in the playbooks we will do as we go through. What I'm going to do is I will just quickly introduce the playbooks now, so that you have an idea of those. We'll then have a bit more discussion about like the city and stuff in general, but that I just wanted to give you a bit of time to sort of mull over, to mull over like the, what playbooks you might want to go for. So I'm going to go through these in the order that they are in the PDF. When I find the PDF. Here we go. So yeah, the playbooks are essentially, they are all based around the sort of person that you are in the real world, as it were. So you have the authority, who is generally someone who has some sort of is a leader essentially, in some fashion, whether that be just in personality or in actual employment, where they might be run a business or something like that. You have the Harlequin, who is they are your sort of trickster type character, and they are often somebody who lives a bit outside of the normal structures of society. You have the Heretic. This is there's a bit of overlap, I think, in some ways between the heretic and the harlequin. But the heretic is someone who is kind of driven by like an ideology, often to change things, and is outside of the sort of normal social structures for those reasons.
Sort of the angry young person.
Exactly. You then have the icon, who is somebody who actually has some modicum of fame, or at least can inspire and impress people. You have the Inhuman. The Inhuman is a bit different. The Inhuman is actually someone who is a being from the castle who has taken on a maybe a human, maybe not, but has taken on a form in the mundane world, but they are intrinsically part of the castle itself, and they are sort of an outsider in the world, in the mundane world. They still, however, broadly, they're in terms of playbook, it still broadly works like the other characters. We'll get into a couple of exceptions to that in a moment. You then have the provider, who is somebody who is sort of a carer, a nurturer, someone who takes care of people in the mundane world. And obviously these sort of personality traits are then kind of give you sort of themed abilities when you go into the castle. Then there is finally the regular playbooks, as I'll call them. You have the Watcher, who is someone who unsurprisingly is all about watching, learning, observing, learning, studying the enemy, and sort of using their cunning and intellect to defeat the castle. You then have two playbooks that are a bit weirder. You have the Captive. This is somebody who is actually held prisoner within the castle. They are unable to leave the castle through conventional means. They can only manifest in the real world as essentially like a possessing spirit. And so they have to be kind of channeled by one of the other characters if they want to act in the real world. Other than that, they're sort of tied very much to the castle. The playbook has a couple of odd kinks, as I said, aside around the mundane world, but they're fairly usual. The final playbook is the Penitent. The Penitent is a character who is part of the power structure of the city, part of the power structure of the castle, and they're trying to redeem themselves. This playbook has quite a lot to it. If someone really fancies it, really wants to go for it, it's a nice, I really like the idea. It does, however, add a whole extra layer of complexity over the regular character thing. They have kind of a very distinct set of additional moves and stuff on top of their sort of the usual stuff that characters can do. So it's a really interesting one, but there is some added complexity that goes with it. So it's and also I have to admit I haven't fully integrated them onto the character sheet yet as well. So but like I said, if someone does really fancy them, don't let that stop you. Just be aware that it is there's quite a lot to that playbook. So yeah, those are the playbooks. We'll sort of have a discussion about like what things people want to go to in a moment. Because first thing that I want to do is go through, as I said, some of our initial kind of setup and how we want things to look. One of the things that this game has, and I sort of mentioned this briefly the other day in sort of just our chat on the thing, but all of the playbooks have, or most of the playbooks, I should say, there are a couple of exceptions to this, but most of the playbooks have like three options that you pick one from. That's your how the castle views your character, essentially, what category the castle views you as being. These are broadly divided into sort of age categories. So you have the categories of delinquent, prodigal, and traitor. Delinquent tends to be younger characters, sort of like high school age to maybe early 20s. You have prodigals, and they're basically people that the castle views as just not fitting into their view of the world, not yet serving a purpose, who need to be molded into shape. You have prodigals, who are essentially people who are just starting to get by in the world, but haven't fully established themselves yet, aren't maybe as fully tied into the structures of the world as the others. And this again tends to be from kind of late teens to sort of like mid to late 20s ish age range. Then you have the traitors, who are people who are more fully enmeshed in the power structure of the castle and of the city. So tend to be more influential, but certainly and often older characters. So tend to be sort of from mid to late 20s on up. These are very, very mutable, and not all of the playbooks go into those. But one of the things I did want to kind of check in is if people would like, so obviously one of the big influence I've sort of already mentioned in this is Persona 5, which is obviously set with a group of high school students essentially who are the protagonists. And one of the questions I sort of had was if people wanted to go for something like that, or if we just want to go for a more even spread of ages, or if you want to like theme your characters around having some sort of specific tie or working for the same company or something like that. So that's one of the things I want to look at. The other big question that I have is sort of is about what do we want the city that you're in to be like? Do we want it to be kind of modeled on a real world city, whether that be directly or more like in the sort of GTA style vague allusion to a city, and as a sort of corollary to that as well, the time period again said the assumption is modern day, give or take, and that's sort of the default assumption. We could go into a little bit more slightly cyberpunkier, a few years in the future sort of thing. Though I will say I'm not interested in going like too sci-fi with it, but if we want to go a bit more that way, that's absolutely cool. Likewise, if we want to go for a kind of a more historical setting, that is also cool. I probably wouldn't go any earlier than Victorian, because kind of the idea of like a big industrialized city is kind of part of the premise of the game. So I probably wouldn't want to go any earlier than that, but that's also a possibility. So I'm just going to go through sort of in order that I've got people on my screen at the moment. So Brandon, did you have any thoughts on like where you'd like to see us, what you'd like to see the city like, what you'd like to see us playing, anything like that?
In terms of the grouping context that you were talking about just now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Playing young people is interesting. The other idea that that came to mind while you were talking, when you were saying, people who all belong to an organization, is people working at a hospital, as a kind of strong organizing concept with a lot of people who are trying to make the world a better place. And now, in reality as well as in the castle, I'm very fond of historical things, as long as it's, and if you don't go past Victoriana, then I have enough reference to enjoy it, but of course only if other people are interested in doing that.
Sure thing. Yeah, no, that's cool. Thank you. And also, I mean, the other thing as well, I will say, just to say that, is like we don't necessarily if we want to play a more loose group of people with no like inherent ties between them other than what we come up with, that is also cool. That we don't we don't need to kind of have a theme, as it were, but
yeah.
Just as something to think about. But yeah, that's cool. Trev, how about yourself?
I think I'm more interested setting wise in like either modern or like near future sort of setting, sort of more like the source material, so to speak.
Yeah, sure thing.
As for the idea that one of the ideas I have for my character, is sort of young adult, not necessarily high schooler or anything, but like maybe college age or something along those lines.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, yeah, that could easily fit in either way. So no, that's perfect. Thank you. Anders, how about you?
Yeah, I think my only stronger preference would be to have like an imaginary city rather than a real world place. It could be modeled like in the style of London or New York or whatever, but not the actual city.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's fair.
And I enjoy having some. I'm not sure if fantastical elements is the correct term, but some, like something weird that we can explore even in the mundane part of the world, like strange currency or whatever.
There's definitely the what's the word I'm looking for? There's definitely the opportunity for some of the weirdness of the castle to spill over into the real world. It's in fact one of the moves that you get. It actually lets you kind of manifest some of your power from the castle in the real world. And some downsides of things can sometimes be that like horrors from the castle get unleashed on the city and stuff like that. So yeah, we can definitely play with that kind of idea of like I mean, I don't want to go so far as to say like urban fantasy, but like
no.
Like kind of sort of creepypasta, cryptidy, all that sort of thing. That like what's the word I'm looking for? There was even a film called it that I am. No, there was not. Well, Paranormal Activity is one of the words, and is also a film, but it
Yeah,
wasn't the word I was
basically,
thinking of.
I just don't want the mundane world to be, I guess, completely mundane from our point of view.
Yeah, sure thing.
It could be things that are completely mundane from the character's point of view, but something that's interestingly strange for us as players to interact.
Yeah, cool.
And with characters, I don't have no strong preferences as to age or the hospital idea was interesting. I think not opposed to it. I don't have a strong preference. I'll go along with whatever.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Sabine, how about you? Any thoughts so far on what's been said, or anything else you want to add?
Yeah, about the city, the first thing I thought about was Dark City, the movie. I don't know, some of you would probably know it, but that would probably more go for the castle because it's so surreal and it's so dystopian, but maybe a more grounded version of that. Maybe that could, because we have lots of to go into the slightly cyberpunky near future, maybe there is a strong divide between the guys who have the real high technology and the other guys who don't, and live basically, maybe this divide between technologies haves and have-nots is a bit stronger than in our world. So maybe that could serve both I like historical settings and I like cyberpunky settings. Maybe we could play around a bit with these, so that we had both options to have still somebody running around with his horse through the city streets, and other people go around with their jetpacks if they can afford them, of course. That's maybe weird ideas. For the group of characters. I like the hospital idea. I thought maybe a teaching hospital that is adjacent to a university or something like that. So we could have people who were in the teaching profession, students, and people who worked at the hospital, because everything is intersected. It's intersecting words.
Oops, sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, no, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. Yeah, so yeah, I think that the idea of like people in some way related to, shall we say, a hospital, whether it be people who work there, people who go there, or people who, students, anything like that. I think I can definitely see that being quite a strong anchor if people want to sort of think their characters around that. Again, as I said, if you want to go for something else in your own character, that is fine. But like I say, we don't need that to be a kind of fully unified thing. But it does definitely give us a nice starting point to go from. I think that's cool. Yeah, and I think maybe a sort of like, yeah, not. I probably, like I said, I probably wouldn't go like. Well, I mean, this is one of those things, isn't it? I probably wouldn't go full on cyberpunky, but I could definitely see like a slightly more, a few years down the road from where we are now. Which, I mean, like I said, you could already argue that we're cyberpunk enough as it is, but it's I think I like that idea of this quite a pronounced split between people who have kind of that level of security and technology and everything else available to them, and people that are kind of just living much more precarious lives, and it's, again, it's not a whole lot different from where we are now, to be honest. But I like the idea of focusing on that and that being a kind of key thing in the game in general. So that's cool. So yeah, I will confess I'm not familiar with, I mean, I'm aware of Dark City, but I don't I've not seen it. I'm not that up on it as on how it looks and everything. But yeah, I guess with those sort of thoughts in mind, do we have kind of an idea of what on how we kind of see the city aesthetically, I suppose, more than anything else, kind of whether it's like yeah, I mean, I know it mentioned somewhere like London or New York, or so, where will sort of our Toronto, as it were, be sort of what sort of does anyone have a thought what they'd like to see for that kind of visual
History.
aspect of it? Yeah,
History. I'd like to see historical buildings that maybe some people have built over or have torn down or have been left to rot a bit, but I like to have a city not like maybe New York, which is quite new from my standpoint, at least, but have something where you can go around a corner and there pops up this old, really 1,000-year-old thing that the culture, the Romans or whatever, left there, and then you can look at it and say, wow, it's 1,000 years old, and then you'll find out it's a replica. The original is in the museum.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was actually wondering maybe something. I mean, admittedly, I've not been there, but maybe sort of somewhere like Rome, that sort of idea where you have kind of one of these places that has been a city for thousands of years and still has some of those old marks of the old city there under the new. I can see something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I also like the idea of like stuff like places like Edinburgh that have like an undercity, like they have like, streets and stuff that are still beneath the newer parts of the city.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think what it does is, I think it'd be nice if the city had a little bit of the aesthetic, not the technology, mind. I'm not talking about that, but the aesthetic of kind of the streets of Blade Runner.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
You've got all these little markets selling, everything is, it's a very efficient society. Everything is scavenged, every bit of junk or something like that is worth money to someone. So there's little markets for everything, and there's a lot of grinding poverty. There's beautiful places in the city, and then there's places that are extended slums.
Yeah, and that kind of, 'cause that's always interesting as well, when you have that kind of contrast between the places that are, old and historical because they've been well kept and well preserved, and those places that are old because no one's done anything with them for 50 years. And yeah, cool.
Yeah, Europe is fine. I only know a couple of cities enough to have any reference at all, but I'm happy to go along.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I also like the idea of things being crowded. Like there's too many people, there's not enough room, and I kind of get that from Blade Runner as well. I like that too. Like there are too many buildings for the area. You don't have a lot of big open spaces. It's buildings everywhere.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a nice idea, and I think that will probably give us enough to get going with on that front. So yeah, the next thing, and what I will probably do is I'll just quickly go through people and see if people have thoughts on what playbooks I would like to go for. And once everyone's happy with what they want, then I'll take like an extended break and also give you some time to do that initial bit of character creation. As I said, you don't need to have much down. Then what we'll do is we'll basically play out a little bit of, we'll essentially discuss who your first the first vassal that you engage with will be. We'll do that confrontation. It's sort of a bit of a way of doing a tutorial and one section of the rules, and then we'll see what time we've got left there and how much of the then building out contacts and links and stuff we can do afterwards. But yeah, so I'm gonna go, I'll go the opposite way around this time. So also because I know that Sabine had some thoughts. So although now you've switched around order on my thing. So I'll go with Treb, in fact. What did you have any of the playbooks you were considering, or which ones was up on your list?
So I was considering either the Icon or the Inhuman, but I'm probably going to lean more towards the Icon at this point, because I've got an idea forming in my head.
Perfect, cool, thank you. And Sabine, how about you?
Yeah, I was leaning towards the Inhuman and maybe the Watcher or the Icon, but that would be the last of the things I'd pick. But I think I'd love the Inhuman, but I'd be happy to play the Watcher.
Cool, no worries, thank you. Anders, how about you? Did you have your eye on any of them in particular?
Not. I don't have a strong preference. I'm kind of leaning towards the Provider. The Penitent seems interesting as well, but with the extra mechanical bits, maybe not, since there's a lot of stuff anyway.
Yeah, that was kind of I really like the playbook and I like how it works, but it is almost literally like a whole other layer on top of a regular character. It's quite a lot to it. It's quite chunky, but it does look very cool. Yeah, probably a good one for a second playthrough. But though it said, obviously, if you do feel like it, absolutely go for it, because it does look very cool. Brandon, how about yourself?
There are really two. I think that there's several actually, but The ones that I think, especially with what other people have chosen, that the heretic is a definite possibility. The other one is the captive. If there is someone else who wants to be host. I've got a very interesting idea for that. If there's someone who wants to have that kind of have a close tie with someone who's dead, but still very much with us.
I mean, I could do that because if I'm playing the Inhuman, that might make an interesting dynamic, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Unless somebody else wants to jump in here.
Yes.
And it's, I should point out as well, sorry, because I didn't explain it fully, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same person all the time either. It's just that every time you manifest in the real world, you have to have kind of an anchor that you tie to. So
no, I understand that. I understand.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's nice to have a primary.
Yeah.
They don't also necessarily have to be dead, is my understanding.
No,
like, they could be, yeah.
No, but
they could be. That's your idea. So okay.
That's in quotes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, just here not here kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Cool. So yeah, what I will do is I'm going to say like I'll explain. So all we need to do in terms of creating a character at this stage is to choose your playbook itself and basically decide who you are like as a character. You don't need to make any choices about stats or anything like that at the moment. All of that we'll do. So we'll just do that, and your and your covenant. That's the only other thing that you need to choose to start with. The only exception is if you do go for the captive, they do not have a choice in covenant. They have a special covenant of their own. There's a list of covenants there. They're basically based on tarot cards, but your playbook will tell you which one is the one you can start with as your crew covenant, and that's one you need to decide on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say I'm going to take about a 5-minute break, but then I'll also I'll sort of aim to get back in about 5 minutes. But I'll also, if you want to start thinking over your characters, getting some detail down on there about who they are, and all that sort of thing. And then we'll pick up when people are ready. We'll introduce the characters. We'll decide who our first opponent is going to be, and then we'll get into things. So yeah, as I said, I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Feel free to take a break now as well if you want. Don't feel you have to sit here and think about things. But if you want, when you want to start getting on to think about your character, also feel free to do that, and then we'll check in a moment. So I'll stop this recording now. Yeah, perfect. Welcome back. So we now have our some characters, or at least the sketch outline for characters that we need at this time in the game. So I am now going to go through in Character Keeper order and ask everyone to introduce their character and give us like the initial pitch on them. As I said, at the minute we only need to keep this very much a sketch, and we can learn more about them as we go through. Treb, if you would like to introduce your character.
I am playing Katie Schultz, the Icon. She is a former child teen actress looking to reignite her career. She made a name for herself, I guess, in like either a TV show or a series of movies that had like an urban fantasy sort of genre to them.
Cool.
She is currently, she dresses smart casual and has laughing eyes. Are we going with the hostile thing, or is that?
Yeah. let's do that.
Okay, so the reason that she's in that setting then is like she's basically her agent, I guess, arranged for her to do some shadowing at the hospital to study for a role.
Cool. I like it. I like it. Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you. And so next, Anders, if you'd like to introduce who you'll be playing.
Yeah, I'll be playing Harly Boulder the Provider. He's a janitor at the hospital, and he kind of putters about and doesn't necessarily do his job all of the time, but he likes taking care of people and helping people with odd little things. And he's a big bearded, overweight guy, but he's very kind, and he looks like a kind, nice man, even if he's not always well dressed or the like.
Lovely, thank you. And next up, Sabine, if you'd like to introduce who you'll be playing.
Yeah, I'm going to play Lucid, who uses the Inhuman playbook. Lucid is a dream, basically. They're not really sure how they became lost or independent or free in the castle. Maybe the person who was dreaming them just lost hope and lost spirit and went to live a humdrum life, or maybe the person who dreamed them discarded the dream because it was unrealistic. And what Lucid is a dream of freedom and of change, and that's represented by death, but that freedom and change is really what Lucid is about. And that is how she came to say, hey, I want to look more at these humans, because they were created by a human being. And the weird thing about Lucid is if you see them, you will find them oddly familiar. Like you had met this person in a dream maybe once. And that's how most people see them. Some see them as clearly a boy, others see them as clearly a girl, and others are undecided. It's a weird look. It's very clear you would not mistake Lucid for another person, but well, Lucid hangs around the hospital mostly because they have chosen the contact because that was offered, and I think that's why they are hanging around there, because they want to learn. That's it, and to discover things. Discovering is important.
Nice. Thank you very much. That sounds cool. And last but not least, Brandon, if you'd like to tell us who you'll be playing.
Jocasta was a surgical resident at the hospital, probably a fourth or fifth year, and a real firecracker, always engaged, always energetic, cheerfully working 14-hour days. This is modifiable, but my idea is that she was brutally killed by the bestial minion of a vassal, and caught by the castle, but refused to go on, feeling that basically now she had unfinished business, part of which is revenge. It's not clear whether Lucid rescued her or whether she rescued Lucid. But either way, Lucid enabled her to come back into this world and find the rest of the rebels. She drops a lot of F-bombs and is very upbeat for someone who's dead. And she seldom manifests visually. She's an immaterial presence most of the time. But when she does, she appears kind of as a ghostly version of herself before, in scrubs with tattoos and silvery eyes. She's a little bit the spirit of the hospital, and what she typically does is push people to go on when they feel like quitting.
So I was muted there. No, that sounds great. Thank you very much. So yeah, perfect. So the next, actually no, I think so we've just had the character introductions. So what we'll do next is we will go around and each one of you. I know, in fact, I know the currently, whether through design or not, our captive does not have a question, but everyone else has a question linked with their crew covenant to ask. And so I'll go back around to the top again. So Katie, would you like to ask the question associated with your? Oh, and I will, if you wish as well. I did put a link to this in the chat earlier, but if you are, I will put one into here as well. I'm going to start adding people to this relationship diagram. But yeah, so yeah, Katie, if you would like to ask your question.
Sorry about that. My question is, which of you gives me a place to crash when home is too far away or too much of a burden?
That could be me, I think. I'll have some what's supposed to be a storage, like a storage closet that I fitted with a spare bed or like a cot and some minor comfort as a place to crash. Mostly for myself, but if someone else needs it, it's available.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Where's that note at?
Yeah, there might not be a specific place for that. You can either just add it to the notes. I'm actually going to make a quick note of that on my thing here. But yeah. Cool, but yeah, Harly, if you would like to ask your.
My question is, which of you can always come to me to feel cared for?
To answer questions if you're asked. Because if so, I would love to come to you and be cared for.
Sure, that works.
Cool.
Yeah, perfect. And Lucid, what's the question you have?
I should have looked at the question instead of Googling for pictures.
I mean, I'd argue that which of those is more important, but you know.
I should ask who remembers me as I used to be. I'm not sure what that even means because I'm a dream, but maybe some of you, one of you remembers who the dreamer was.
Me.
Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely, Jocasta, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, you are. Jocasta knows you better than you know yourself, I think, somehow.
That is an interesting perspective. I am very curious to discuss that with you.
Yes.
Because I feel I know myself quite well. I'm lacking some things, but I am myself, which is strange, but nonetheless, it is true.
Cool. Perfect. And yes, as I said, currently Jocasta, as I said, the captive does not have a specific question to ask. If there is a question that you would like to, if there is something that you think would be interesting to add a link to, you feel free to ask it. But also, if you just want to leave it that due to your nature, you don't have that many connections, that's also fine.
Yeah, I mean, this is a matter of connection, which is who misses me the most. I view Jocasta as basically, having torn a hole when she was killed. In for a lot of the people in the hospital and environs. And so, who did I matter to? Back when I was.
Yes, that's probably me then. I'm not sure. I don't think any of the others were like permanently at the hospital. Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds good. So our last thing, well, I say last thing. Our next thing is to we will need a vassal for us to go up against. So I'll just explain a little bit about what's of the vague introduction to the metaphysics of this game. Basically, vassals of the castle are people in the city who, that is actually, I'll probably go into that in more detail either next time or just in the chat in between sessions about like what we want the structure of the castle, not in the physical sense, more in the hierarchical sense, to be like whether we want it to be a sort of a proper feudal, there is a king of the city and all this, or if we want it to be a bit more like vague and stuff. But that's not important for right now. It just crossed my mind that I hadn't had that conversation, so we will do that later. But yeah, so your initial a vassal is basically somebody who is they are a living human in the mundane city, but they have tapped into the power of the castle and it is empowering them. It tends to focus on people who are driven by acquisition of power, wealth, and all of this. They are generally somebody who, both because of their own nature and because of in particular of the urging of the castle, are hurting people in the city to get what they want. It's not a benign manifestation of power and wealth. It is something that is actively harmful. So this our initial vassal, as I said, each of you has a question about this in the on your playbook that will give you a link to this vassal. But I'm wondering who would you like this first vassal to be, whether that be in terms of like what they do, what they're up to. And so the idea is essentially when we frame the scene, it will be at the point that for what you have all managed to get into the castle, probably for the first time, at least for those of you who aren't more inexorably tied to it, and will be facing them down. There is a good chance that you will be able to take them down on this run. So basically picking a kind of somebody who isn't necessarily going to be a big ongoing villain is a good idea. Just someone. But does anyone have a strong idea for someone that they would like to be engaging with, or some sort of archetype, I suppose, that they would like to be engaging with?
One possibility is basically an exploiting factory owner who is whose workers are basically exposed to toxic substances and things like that. It turns their labor force and damages them in the process in order to, paying as little money and getting rid of them when they become too sick to continue working.
I have another idea. I'll just throw it in, right? I thought, since we're at a hospital, I thought about a bossy nurse who just exploits her station because she's the boss, and she will use the little power she has over the patients, just because she can. Because you said we should maybe go for a lower level villain.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, no, I like both of those. They're both good starting points to get us off.
Might make if it's in the hospital, a slight turn on that would be an administrator who is more interested in having their name show up, getting credit for things like that than actual patient care. And so who stresses out drives the staff hard and in order to get good numbers and things like that, irrespective of the actual mission of the hospital.
Yeah, cutting corners and skimping on money for protective gear and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
I like
right.
Like that one.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Trev, does that sound okay with you?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Perfect. So we will go with our I think that's I like the idea, sort of mix of those two of that sort of very very much a sort of petty tyrant who is doing the most petty things just for
self-aggrandizement.
for profit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. So as I say, each one of you on that first ascent thing, after it says in fact first ascent, you should say before you have your first elf work through zone answer X question. So I'm going to go through in just going to actually double check again that I think that's cool. You do have one for that one, Brandon, so that's fine. So I'm going to go through again. I'll go through in character keeper order and ask you to give that question and give your answer to it. So Katie, if we can start off with you again.
I'm just trying to find the question.
Yeah, no worries. I don't know if this one is actually in the character keeper. I think it is just in the playbook itself. As I said, it's on that second page, just under where it says making your blank, where it says first descent. The line next to that will have the question at the end. If actually, I will find your one, which is for the icon.
I've got it. It. How is the vassal exploiting your image? So I think this administrator is basically using Katie's interning basically at the hospital as like a sort of PR boost / smokescreen to distract from any bad press that might potentially come from the practices that they are creating.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm just going to start. I'm going to give them. I'm going to call them Madeline Knight. It's going to be our Cool. And so yeah, Harvey, what's your question? And
yeah, my questions are: who did the vassal hurt, and how did you comfort them? And I was thinking of one of the nurses was denied leave for some family thing, like going to her brother's wedding. This administrator wouldn't give her leave. And how did I comfort her? I guess maybe I set something up. Maybe it's just because we're on a video call now, but I was thinking maybe he snuck her into one of the administrative offices where they have this like video conference suite, and she could at least talk to the people at the wedding and give her greetings and that sort of thing.
yeah, that's cool. I like that. That's nice. Perfect. And Lucid, what's your question there?
My question at the first descent, right before your first stealth, works for decent answer.
Yep.
How did the rebels catch your attention, and why are you helping them? And I think the whole thing caught my attention because basically because I was curious about what was her name, Katie? Because
Yep.
people were always talking about her, like this person is amazing, and I had a little hard time figuring out what they meant when they said the name of the role she was playing, and then conflating that with Katie. But I was curious, and I really wanted to go and help and meet this person, and I think I kind of got into a situation where where this administrator was maybe using Katie to distract people from looking where they shouldn't, and I kind of stepped in and, not entirely on purpose, started asking hard questions like, okay, so you were this famous person, but there are people right now selling these medicine, these pills. Isn't that like something you would have prevented back then? And then maybe something was like, why are these people selling these pills? And of course there was an excuse, and it was a misunderstanding, and it was just one thing that happened, but still it kind of blew up, and I came to understand that I actually had done something good by my, at that point, innocent questions.
Nice, thank you. That's great. And lastly, Jocasta, what's your the question you have?
The question I have is, let me get the wording. How did you break free just enough to help these rebels? Well, I found Lucid. I didn't understand, and probably don't still understand, how she has a connection back with the world. But I had a burning wish to take care of business, basically, to have revenge, and and see the people I missed, and all that sort of thing. I felt like my life had been hacked off, before I'd even really started to live it. And so when Lucid appeared, And at a connection back, I basically said, you know, let's go together, take me with you.
Maybe you pushed me to ask these questions that on my part were innocent, but on yours probably were not so much.
No, it's like, no, and you're right. And I've reassured Lucid of any doubts that that they may have had. It's like, of course, this is a good idea. You know, this is brilliant. We absolutely have to do this. Trust me.
Lucid is not much into self-doubt, but you just need to point them somewhere where they can ask questions and figure stuff out and change things.
Well, Jocasta, yeah, I mean, Jocasta is a good person to ask questions of too, because, I mean, she knows a lot about the realm that she was torn out of. So that's the answer.
Awesome, awesome. So, I think I'm gonna throw this out there, and I'm gonna have a think on it as well. But does any of you have a thought about how it is you all managed to cross over the veil and enter the castle, and in particular into Madeline Knight's shard of the castle? Does anyone have a thought about how that might have looked? Or if not, I will give you something.
So if Katie was like basically posed these hard questions, and she didn't know about any of the things that were she was being asked about at the time, but it would have like made her curious, and she would start questioning it and maybe poking where she shouldn't.
Jocasta got wind that Katie and everyone else, wanted this. I mean, she could have opened the door. Kind of what she does.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's like I can. It's like, this is. When open, kind of thing, you open this door and it goes to a completely different place than it did when you last opened it.
Which I did not think was weird at all, because that's what it's always been, for me at least.
Yeah.
I was very chill with this.
I like it. So we're going to take another quick break now, another about 5 minutes. So when we come back, we'll be diving straight into a confrontation with Madeline Knight, or Madeline Knight's projection in the castle. Normally there's a whole rigmarole before you get to this point, but this is kind of our hard open, as it were, for the series. If you wish, but don't feel you need to, in the move reference sheet, there is one of the pages in there is called confrontation moves, and this will be the majority of what we will be doing for the rest of this session. I think we'll see how much of the post confrontation stuff we get done, but I suspect we'll only get a little, if any. But I will say back in about 5 minutes, and we'll pick things up then. And so we will be now moving into this confrontation with our first vassal, Madeline Knight. So I will get into I'll set up the scene in a second. I'm just going to go over a couple of mechanical details first, just so we're sort of know what's going on here. Firstly, when you are in the castle, you have a number of stats. These are listed on the sheet. I have compressed down the bits that aren't the castle at the minute, just so we've got that front and center. So there are four stats named after tarot card decks. Suits. That's the word. the so they are swords, coins, wands, and cups. I'll just give you a quick overview of what those mean. So swords.
What line are they on? I'm sorry. I see them. Sorry, forget.
No worries. So yes, swords is your ability to take direct action against your foes. So in exploring, it's used to smash through obstacles and face down hordes, and in fights, you use it to get in their face and throw them off balance. Coins is your ability to make use of the world around you. So when exploring, you use it to find your way through and assess your surroundings, and in fights, you use it to spot openings and help your allies exploit them. Wands is your ability to be quick thinking and creative. When exploring, you use it to find safe refuge from the castle's inhabitants and move quickly and gracefully. And in fights, you use it to dodge away from blows or use trickery and guile. And finally, cups is your ability to open your heart to the world around you. When you're exploring, you'll use it to bond with the castle's inhabitants. And in fights, you can draw on it to help your allies and appeal to your opponent's better natures. So those are the 4 key stats. The way that using these stats works is that, sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze, but I think I'm okay. The first time you go to use a stat in a roll, you get to choose what your value for that is. You get 2 +1s, a 0, and a -1. So basically, if say you say I tell you to roll swords and you haven't yet assigned swords, you get to come. Is sword something I'm good at, and so it's a +1, or is it something I'm actually not great at? So I'm going to give that a -1. Whatever else. So that's we do it sort of as we play through, rather than having to make all those decisions up front. So that's how the stats work. I'll remind you again when you do it, like what is available to you for those, but that's how we do those stats. The way a confrontation works, this is basically the sort of mode that we go into. It's essentially a boss fight type situation. It's when you're having a significant combat against an opponent. We have this confrontation. There are a number of moves that are specific to confrontations. Like I said, they're on that page in the thing. There are a couple of other moves that might get called into play if you hit them. That's fine. The main sort of mechanical consideration here is that your opponent, the vassal, will have a number of qualities. These are essentially their strengths and their sort of what they can leverage against you. When there are a couple of, so when the sort of idea, the goal of confrontation against a vassal is to remove all of their qualities, so that they are essentially taken out of the fight, and that sort of represents you like breaking through to their psyche, as it were, and disrupting them. The main move that allows you to target their qualities is to use the strike move. However, to use the strike move, you have to have an opening. An opening is basically something created by some of the other moves. It's essentially a way of a vulnerability or something that you can exploit against the opponent to get a strike in. So essentially there's a sort of like a bit of a rhythm of exposing an opportunity with one move, and then someone following up to use that opportunity to land a strike. When you've taken out all their qualities, then you have defeated them. If you are pushed back and defeated yourself, then obviously that's another way the thing can go. But that's a very brief mechanical overview of how this is all going to shake out. However, what we see as we fade into the action, you've all stepped through a doorway opened by Jocasta. As you step through, rather than stepping into the sort of boring square office that should be on the other side of this door, it instead opens up to, it kind of looks like a Gothic cathedral, but rather than sort of carved pillars, it's these huge filing cabinets that sort of stretch up to the ceiling. You can't even really see the ceiling properly in here. It's up high, but there are these huge stacks of filing cabinets going up to it. At a desk at the end, it's one of those huge old mahogany polished desks, and there are stacks and stacks of papers lined up on there, and a figure. It certainly bears a resemblance to Madeline Knight, but they are much taller. They're probably like 7-8 foot tall. She's wearing it's like a very long floor length, like evening gown type affair, but it's in sort of like a harsh grey pinstripe. Her sort of, she's got like golden curly hair, but it's sort of piled up into a sort of an elaborate, almost like 18th century wig style thing on her, and she is scratching away at these documents in front of her with a long quill pen, which as you know, she sort of like as she sort of dips this pen into the inkwell next to her as she sort of goes back to writing, in the sort of harsh, sort of almost like fluorescent light that's filtering down from the unseen ceiling. You can see a glint of wet blood on the end of this pen as she's scrawling away. So yeah, what do you do? I'm going to turn to Lucid first, I think, because this is possibly given the fact that you're probably as we've just had you're probably the most familiar with this place, other than maybe Jocasta, who has just opened the way. So yeah, how do you react upon seeing this site?
I think I recognize her, and I will just step up and look at what she's doing. Like, I'm not making any kind of, I'm not even trying to hide that I'm here, and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, hey, do you know what you're doing? It's not a really good thing. You are, I think, a bad person. And I'm gonna stop you if I can. I mean, maybe I'm gonna change you. You could change yourself, you know? Be a better person. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Awesome. I think that this is, yeah, I'm going to ask you to make a I think actually I'm going to call this a confront, because you're being quite direct with her. While you're not launching a physical attack, you are sort of directly calling her out. So if you would like to roll with swords, and again, I'll remind you here, you can choose whether this is a +1, a 0, or a -1 at this stage.
I don't know. I mean, take direct action seems like something I can see Lucid doing a lot, but I don't know. I'm giving her a 0 for now.
Sure. You can explicitly it's not simple, but there are ways of switching around your thing. And also, obviously, like after the first session, I'm happy to let people shift around anyway, because, you know.
Okay, so I'm rolling 2 dice, right?
That's right.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I just want to understand what's going on here, because you said this was a strike, right?
This is a confront roll. So
confront.
yeah.
Right. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's quite all right.
Yeah, then I'm fine. Thank you.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's right. Because yeah, to make a strike, you have to have an opening to be able to do so.
Okay, I'm rolling. I've rolled a 9. Yeah, okay.
A 9, nice. So on a 7 to 9, you pick one off of the following. So you will create an opening, and they will they will inflict a condition on you, but you get to choose one off of the list. Which is, you resist the full force of their blows, you keep them from moving from where they are, or you give an ally a window to act freely.
I think I would like to resist the full force of their blows for now. I mean, this weird pen. No, that does not belong in my body.
Yeah.
Do I still have to take a condition, or does this?
No, I think
Okay.
I think,
Cool.
and especially because at the moment that you're not escalating to force. I think, or anything really out there. I think she's not going full bore anyway. So I think by resisting the force of her blows, I don't think you'll take a condition. But I think that
I yell, "Hey, rude!"
she will look up and say, "Who are you and what are you doing here? I'm really quite busy. I hardly. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is my job. This is my work. Of course I'm supposed to be doing this. Why are you here? Why are you disturbing me?" And as I say, there is now an opening on Madeline.
How much do we understand about what's going on? Like, is it just like we've just dropped through this portal, and or did we learn something before that?
I'm going to. It's fairly open, to be honest. So I'm happy for people to be as familiar with the idea of this place as they wish to be. Certainly, obviously, you have 2 characters who have an inherent connection to the castle.
Yeah.
So I think it's reasonable to expect that you have been at least somewhat prepared for this, for the 2
Right, and you can
regular people.
And of course, you can ask.
So I'm just gonna call out, Madeline, please. You're not helping anyone with what you're doing. You need to stop. I'm like appealing to whatever goodness might be in her heart.
Certainly. Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, that will be a strike, and with arguments and emotional appeals, you roll to strike with cups. I should point out that obviously the strike in particular, I think all of the moves can be slightly mutable as to what they mean exactly. Strike specifically does not have to be, punching them in the face. Absolutely can be, but it does not have to be. And yeah, so when you're making taking advantage of an opening with arguments and emotional appeals, you roll with cups. Again, you can set your cups to +1, 0, or -1, and you have 2 +1s to assign.
I'll roll with +1.
Yep, certainly.
Where did I put that dice roller? Okay, so that's 7 + 1, 8.
Okay, so what will happen now, and this is again just to sort of go behind the curtain for a second. Each of the qualities that a vassal has gives them an ability and a power that they can do, or some abilities and stuff they can do. They also have a specific reaction that takes place when they are when that quality is broken, that they always react with. So that will be one thing that's happening. And because you got a 7 to 9, you also have to choose one off of the following list. So you either they lash out and you mark a condition, they single you out, isolating you from all allies, or they reshape the arena and introduce a new threat.
Let's see. I will. They lash out at me.
Certainly. So you will mark a condition. Those are right at the very top of the character keeper. I will let you choose which of those you mark. So the 5 conditions are angry, callous, cowed, overwhelmed, and scared. And yeah, you may choose whichever of those you feel appropriate.
What does Madeline do to?
Yeah, certainly. So what happens as you as you sort of speak as you speak to Madeline, you you speak these you call out to her, you tell her she's not helping anyone, that she's doing this, and you just see for a moment the face that she has, it almost has like that porcelain doll look to it. It's like absolutely perfect and smooth, perfectly made up, but as you say those words, there's like a crack, cracks run down the face mask from the corners of her eyes and start to spread out, and the faceplate just sort of like cracks off of her, and you see her face underneath, which is still her face, but it's much paler and more drawn. And there are fangs, coming down over her bottom lips. And as it breaks, she lets out a shriek, and she says, "I'm just doing what I have to do. That's all anyone does." And she launches herself at Katie, and she says, "It's always been easy for you, hasn't it? It's people like you, but no, I have to work. And she kind of jabs at you with this long quill pen, plunging it into you, and you can kind of feel it, rather than like injecting something into it. You can feel it sort of starting to draw the blood out of you, Katie.
Okay, so let me just line that up. Let's see. What is that? Disadvantage on Rebel Eyes and line it up. Yeah, so I think like Katie definitely wasn't expecting to be doing to be in this kind of situation, and she has like done like stunts and stuff, but this is like the first real dangerous situation she's been in like this, so she's feeling overwhelmed.
That is absolutely fair. It's certainly an overwhelming situation. Brilliant, thank you very much. So yeah, I think next I'm going to turn to Harly. Obviously you've seen Madeline has jumped and leapt at Katie, lashing out at her with this cruel quill pen. What do you do?
I not lunge forward maybe, but push forward and try to get Madeline away from Katie. Don't you go stabbing her with that nasty pen. She's just trying to help you.
Yeah. Excellent. So I think again, I think this. I'll ask what sort of your primary motivation here. So we can either go for a confront if you're just basically that, which is definitely here. That's definitely kind of getting in the way of their attack and throwing them off balance. Or it could potentially be stand with me, which is when you reach out to bolster an ally. Whichever you think is more your kind of end goal here.
Yeah, I think it's more that I'm more interested in protecting Katie than confronting Madeline.
Perfect.
I'm trying to that's definitely what I'm going.
Cool. So stand with me is when you reach out to bolster an ally. Roll with cups. So again, you can set this as either +1, 0, or -1.
Yeah, I definitely want +1 there.
Cool.
Yeah. Find that. Oh, that's a 6, but I have a +1, so it's a 7.
And a 7. Okay, so you get to pick one. They are. So in this case, it'll be Katie is saved from danger. They heal a condition. The enemy prioritizes you over them, or they get fleeting advantage. So advantage is fleeting advantage basically means advantage on the next roll they make, and that is that advantage is you roll 3d6, pick the best 2. Disadvantages roll 3d6, take the worst 2.
So I'm not sure if I'm reading this right, but I think Katie gets to choose a bolster an ally.
Oh yes, no, that is very true. Sorry, yes. So Katie gets to make that choice. Yeah, that is correct. Sorry, yeah.
Why does it say Katie chooses?
It says on a 7 to 9 they pick one. It's not pick one like the other ones.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm reading a different document, I guess. Let me pull up this same one you're looking at.
This is the one with the move.
Oh, I see the moves. But
this is 0.6. This is 0.6. So just check the version number, maybe. Because I didn't have 0.6 until you mentioned it.
Yeah, the ones in the shared folder should all be the right version. Fingers crossed, unless I copied. But I think I copied the right ones in.
Move sheets.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one in the folder anyway.
Anyway, I'm not sure I want to get rid of the condition right after I got it.
Sure.
So I guess I'll get fleeting advantage to whatever I'm doing next time.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Their attention is momentarily diverted away from you and towards Harley as they come up. So Jocasta, whilst this is going on, what do you want to be doing?
Well, there's no opening here, so I cannot do what I primarily had in mind. She's writing with blood, right? She's writing.
That's right. Yep.
With blood.
And as you kind of look over towards her desk, there's sort of like those old-fashioned glass jars that they used to use for sort of blood transfusions are stacked up, spreading out around the desk.
Jocasta's manifestation is that generally that she's wearing scrubs, and they're bloody. It's her own blood, normally. And in this case, I think that this is blood that really doesn't belong to her. And there's no way to give it back to its owner, but at least it shouldn't be being used in this regard. I'm going to manifest a baseball bat. And I'm just going to take and I'm going to start smashing vessels.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I think this will be a confront, because well, you're not directly engaging her per se. You are going after her stuff. So that is a roll with swords. And as ever, you have I think currently 2 + 1's a 0 and a -1 available for you on that.
Jocasta's angry, and I think she's got a +1 in swords.
Cool.
As a result therefrom. So let's roll the dice. But it's still a miss.
Okay, yeah. So I think that firstly, whenever you get a miss on a roll in the castle, you mark a point of world. So you should see towards the almost at the very top of the character keeper, there are some tick boxes there with world and void marked. So if you tick a point of world, and I think that this is going to be so I think as you start smashing these vials, the blood starts to pool on the floor around your feet, but then it kind of starts to form back up again, and it forms up into this long viscous tendril, and the tendril is going to slam out at you, and I think I would like for you to I think I would like for you to roll to push through the pain. This is a bit like the move in Masks. You roll it with the number of conditions you currently have marked, and you're essentially looking to get a low result.
Right. Yeah, this is the take arm roll.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me do that. I have no conditions, so we got a 5. That's good.
That's a 5. Okay, so yeah, you are. So this this sort of bloody tendril slams you backwards, and you kind of skid across the floor. But it doesn't do you any lasting harm here.
Is that the fucking best you can do?
Nice. And I think because it doesn't say you don't, I think that you will mark another point of world for that, because it's. I'll double check that in future, but I think because I'm going to say you still mark a point of world for that, because it's still a 6-, even though it's technically the favorable result. So yeah, and I'm
dripping with blood and looking pissed.
Yeah. So yeah, how do the rest of you react to this? Does one of you? I'll throw this open. Does someone have an immediate reaction they want to make to these developments?
What is Madeline doing when this is happening?
Madeline hasn't even really reacted as such. This seems to be like almost an autonomous reaction from the blood.
Okay. I'll let Sabine go first.
I would like to figure out what the connection here is and how we can use it to hurt her, stop her.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, if you would like to, that it sounds like a line it up, which is when you size up the enemy to locate a weak spot, you roll with coins. So again, you get to assign the. I think you've got either a +1 or a -1 that you can assign to this.
+1 here, I think, because I like that one. I've rolled a 7, so it's an 8. Yay.
Cool. So yeah, you are going to find an opening. So you get to say where it's coming from, the environment, a chink in their armor, a flaw in their fighting style, or something else. And then you get to pick. Then you have to pick 2 from the list. Either the foe sends an attack your way, the opening only lasts a few moments, or the foe sees you, get fleeting disadvantage on strike.
I think the foe sends an attack my way because I'm moving towards the desk, and I think she's figuring out what I'm doing here, and so I get fleeting disadvantage on strike. But the opening doesn't last. It doesn't last only a few moments. It lasts.
Yeah, sure thing. And yeah, what do you think the flaw that you spot in her setup or her style is?
I think the flaw in this is in the documents themselves, because you can just go and rip them off. They're just blank documents. You can just take them and rip them. And I will, of course, convey this to everybody. And I say, look, these documents, they're worthless. We can just rip them apart. There's nothing here of lasting worth.
Madeline will let out a screech and say, "They are not worthless. They are everything." And she's got sort of like she's still like holding like a little briefcase in one hand, and she pulls a document out of it, and throws it towards you, and it spins. It's got almost that throwing star look to it as this spins towards you. Would you like to try and dodge this?
Of course, yes. Dodging sounds really funny, and I think I would like that's my wands, right?
That's wands, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and I'm afraid I will have to assign the other +1 to that, or no, I will assign the -1 to that.
Sure thing.
And then I'll assign the last one to cups.
Yep.
Yeah, that's okay. And then I'm rolling and seeing how well I dodge. Probably not that well. Well, not that well. It's a 6.
Yeah. So you get like a vicious paper cut as this slices across your cheek, and like as some blood like rolls down your cheek, it gets like absorbed into the document as it flies off, and it kind of almost does that boomerang thing where it like hits you and starts to spin back, and it lands neatly, perfectly on top of the stack of papers on her desk. How do you think this makes you feel? You're going to be marking a condition here, but I'm interested to see which one you think you'll go for.
I don't know. Maybe I'm scared or cowed. I think I'm scared.
Scared,
yeah. I mean, this didn't happen to me before I started confronting these. Oh, hurts. Maybe there's more meaning here than I thought.
Awesome. So yeah, and I think so. Yeah, Katie, I think you were poised to react as well. So you do have an opening against Madeline. She is sort of quite distracted from you at this stage.
Okay, so I think Katie will trying to remember her martial arts training from back in the day, which she's barely kept up with since. So I think she's going to try and do a kick to the face and crack that mask a bit more.
Sure thing, yeah. And as you do it, I mean, we'll see obviously how that maneuver actually turns out. But certainly, as you go into the maneuver, it's so much easier to do this here. You can kind of feel, it's almost like that feeling of like being on sort of on the wire rig. You're lighter and quicker and faster. It's.
I think I'll go with a 0.
Yep.
So
You have advantage, right? From when I helped you before.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll be rolling 3d6 and then taking the best 2.
6, 7. So it's a 7.
7. That's still a hit. So yeah, on a 7 to 9. So again, they will trigger one of their break moves, which I'll just double check. And yeah, I think that you kick into the remnants of the mask that's sort of like framing her face, and it shatters, but like this cloud of like porcelain dust flies into your face, and you're blinded momentarily. You can't see what's going on around you. You're generally disoriented, and then you get to pick one of the options off of that list as well. So again, they lash out and you mark a condition, they single you out and isolate you from your allies, or they reshape the arena and introduce a new threat.
Sorry, what move are we gonna?
This is on strike. Sorry, I was presuming that was
Okay, yeah.
That was the strike.
Yeah, okay. They single me out.
Yep, certainly. So yeah, I think and I think as you sort of stagger back from this with disoriented, and there's like a you can hear clangs all around you as as these filing cabinets start falling, like almost forming like a cage around you, and papers start pouring out of the filing cabinets, and you can feel them kind of rising up around you. Harley, how are you? Harley or Jocasta, I'll give you an opportunity. Which does either of you have a next plan you would like to undertake?
I don't have anything obvious, so go ahead if you have something.
We have to get Katie out of there. She's being imprisoned by files. Yes.
Sorry, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Harley, can I'll let you get to her if you can get her out.
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay. Jocasta wraps her arms around herself and shuts her eyes and becomes translucent. And when she does, she opens up a window in the filing cabinets. With all the shifting papers there, they seem to become immaterial there briefly. and offer you a portal by which you can get into where Katie is imprisoned. I can't hold this very long. You have to do this quickly.
Awesome. And I think what I will do is I'll say that can be a if you'd like to make a stand with me roll to bolster an ally. You'll provide the opportunity for them to get in regardless, but it'll just see if you give them some extra boost on the way. So that's a roll with cups.
Cups, I think, is going to be Joe's other +1, because she's all about get off your butt and do your job. She's very brusque, but she's effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That's a 9.
A 9, perfect. So on a 9, Harley, you get to choose one off of that list.
I guess the advantage is what makes sense here.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So then Harley is. I'm imagining this like a kind of a tunnel through with the
papers are still the papers are still flying, but there is an area where they're not material.
Yeah.
Where you just see them passing right through you as it's the strangest thing.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
And it's a kind of a shimmering. This is a shimmering interface between the place where they're material and where there's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Harley is moving through this, and he's kind of hunched down because he's quite big, and he doesn't want to get into the area where the papers are material, and he's moving through these papers, and he's trying to find Katie and reaching out for her so he can pull her out of these piling up papers that are stacking on top of her. So I guess I'm also rolling stand with me.
I actually think this is going to be one of the exploration moves, which is the next page before this. This sounds like a power through. When you hurl your strength at the castle's obstacles, roll with swords.
Yeah, and I think, having looked at the moves, I think I'm going to have to put my -1 in swords, because that's not what Harley's about.
No,
but I have advantage.
But
so
you do have
maybe
advantage, so yeah,
things will work out anyway. Let's see, and I roll an 8, so that's a 7.
7, perfect. So yeah. One of the options on power through. So when you on a hit with power through, you can destroy an obstruction or piece of scenery. You can knock back and scatter a group of minions, or you can give another rebel a clear path out of danger.
Yeah, definitely the last one.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
You can throw a third die in there. There's a better thing to pick on. Revenge.
Cool. And but I will also give you your actions a cost. I think I'm going to ask you to mark a point of void. I think as you get Katie out, you can feel a few of these, as these like sort of immaterial documents pass through. You can just feel that like icky feeling of something just like latching onto you. Cool.
As you get Katie out of there, and Jocasta lets out a shuddering breath. That's goes to normal.
Nice. and Madeline just like I said, the mask is like completely collapsed off of her now. Her face looks drawn and white and waxy, and she just turns to you and says, "Why are you doing this? Why are you destroying everything I have worked for? I was so close. I could have made something, and you are just everything is out of order. Everything is collapsing now, and it's all your fault."
Because, bitch, you're using the blood of other people to get what you want. And that doesn't fucking wash. Says Jocasta, who is kind of leaning up against a wall, momentarily catching her breath.
How dare you judge me?
I can fucking judge you all I want. I'm dead as shit.
Nice. And yeah, and I think again, this feels to me very much like a confront here. If you'd like to roll with swords.
Yep. That's an 8.
An 8. So
better with words than with a baseball bat.
So yeah, once again, you get to you will throw them off balance and create an opening, but they will get some form of retaliation against you. But you get to choose one of resisting the full force of their blows, keeping them from moving from where they are, or giving an ally a window to act freely.
I'll ghost and resist the full force of their shot.
Yeah. And I think again, she just like it sort of like screams incoherently and throws a I think she essentially she's had this briefcase she's been carrying. It's one of those sort of big leather briefcases with a big metal corners on it. She hurls it at you, but yeah, you just go
and I
insubstantial
go insubstantial, and it spangs against the wall behind me.
Yeah.
Not good enough, bitch. Try again.
I would like to do something.
Go for it.
While she is distracted over there, I mean, there are these pieces of her mask that still cling to her face, right?
Yep.
So I would like to set it up so that I can take one of them, because I'm just bleeding from this paper cut and I'm a bit scared. But I will, when she moves and towards Jocasta and is totally distracted by her, I would like to step into her way precisely just pick off one of the mask pieces. Let's see if I pick off anything else.
Sure thing. So do you feel like this is a strike?
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe stealth and guile here for ones.
No, I'm aiming for precise insight. I'm not aiming for a stealth. She's distracted, so I don't need really to sneak around. I just want to step in there at the precise moment when she's vulnerable.
Yeah, no, that is perfect.
Makes sense?
No, that's cool. Yeah. No, so
Okay.
yeah, roll with coins.
Yay. Another 7, so it's an 8.
Perfect. So you will pick this shard of this final shard of mask. It's just clinging to sort of like the collar of her dress, and as you remove that final piece, she just freezes, and actual like tears of blood start running down her cheeks. But as they do, you can see kind of her face fading away, and her dress just like crumples to the floor as the sort of room around you starts to shift. And so you have just defeated your first vassal. I will. There will be some sort of post things that happen after this, but I will save those for next time, as we are just coming up to 1/2 now. Yeah, thank you very much for that, everyone. That was very good fun. I hope you all enjoyed what we got so far, and we'll start introducing more pieces of the puzzle next time. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording now.